Hi, so in a slight departure from the normal Exploring Middle-earth, where I follow the narrative of characters as they explore the Lord of the Rings online, I'm going to talk about one particular character, as I was asked a question a few weeks ago about, am I sure that Ungoliant is a Maya? Because I'd said so, and yes, I am quite sure about this. So what I'm going to do is explain where I'm coming from that, and also to talk about who Ungoliant is and the very small but memorable role it has played in the Middle-earth story, but also to talk about some of the exceptional features of this one, which maybe, I'm only guessing, has caused some people to wonder if Ungoliant really is a Maya. So first things first, I'm just going to read a couple of excerpts from the Silmarillion, which is where Ungoliant features predominantly, just to explain where I'm coming from with this. So speaking of Melkor, who became Morgoth, who was Sauron's master, and he himself was a Valar, one of the greater of the entities created by Ilúvatar, and himself probably the greatest of the Valar. It says, "Yet so great was the power of his uprising that in ages forgotten he contended with Manwë and all the Valar, and through long years in Arda held dominion over most of the lands of the earth. But he was not alone, for the Maiar many were drawn to his splendour in the days of his greatness, and remained in that allegiance down into his darkness. And others he corrupted afterwards to his service with lies and treacherous gifts. Dreadful among these spirits were the Valaruka, the scourges of fire that in Middle-earth were called the Balrogs, demons of terror." So the particular phrase there is, "and others he corrupted afterwards to his service with lies and treacherous gifts." Now, when it comes to the chapter 8 of the Darkening of Valinor, which concerns Ungoliant herself, "Thus unseen he came at last to the dark region of Avathar. That narrow land lay south of the Bay of Eldamar, beneath the eastern feet of the Pelori, and in its long and mournful shores stretched away into the south, lightless and unexplored. There, beneath the sheer walls of the mountains and the cold dark sea, the shadows were deepest and thickest in the world. And there, in Avathar, secret and unknown, Ungoliant had made her abode. The Eldar knew not whence she came, but some have said that in ages long before she descended from the darkness that lies about Arda, when Melkor first looked down in envy upon the kingdom of Manwë, and that in the beginning she was one of those that he corrupted into his service. But she had disowned her master, desiring to be mistress of her own lust, taking all things to herself to feed her emptiness. So the key thing is there, where some people I think doubt a little bit. First of all, I've seen someone suggest that not even the Valar know where Ungoliant came from. Now, I'm not quite sure where that's supposed to come from, because I've never seen any reference to that. It says here that the Eldar don't know where she came from, but those are the elves, not the Valar, really. Now, this is because, of course, the Maiar are spirits created by Ilúvatar before Middle-earth and before the whole world of Arda, come to that, was even formed, who then alighted there. So, of course, the Eldar wouldn't know the origins of any Maiar or Valar unless they had told them. And, of course, Ungoliant's not the sort to have been pally with the elves of the First Age. So what it's doing here, this in a narrative way, is explaining the origin of Ungoliant, but being aware that the narrators, because the Silmarillion is written as a book written by elves, really, they can't know where she came from, so it describes her origin in rumours. And by describing it as one of those whom he corrupted, it uses even the same language that used earlier on when it describes Melkor corrupting some of the Maiar spirits. So to my mind, there is absolutely no doubt at all that Ungoliant is Maiar. Apart from anything else, there's, largely a set hierarchy of beings in Arda and certainly Middle-earth. And Ungoliant absolutely fits the form of that. It even describes her as taking the form of a great spider. And of course, Maiar are invisible, just like Valar are themselves. To become visible, they have to take a particular form. So it all fits. Where potential doubt may come in is, first of all, I suppose, possibly because of Tom Bombadil. We know that Tom Bombadil, as I discussed in a video some time ago, doesn't really fit into that hierarchy. But I think it's best said that Tom Bombadil, because he was created as a character before Tolkien was really getting to grips with his world, that he remains an anomaly. Ungoliant was created for the Silmarillion, which as a book took a hell of a long time and of course was never truly finished. But nonetheless, in the form that we have it, in the most complete form that his Tolkien's son Christopher Tolkien was able to produce, it is far more considered. Then we look at what Ungoliant actually did. So Ungoliant sought to consume light. At the time on Arda, the light of the world was produced by the two trees of Valinor. There was no sun and moon at the time. That was created later. And Melkor, who he was still known as Melkor at the time, wanted to make war against the other Valar, and he wanted to take Ungoliant so that she could consume the light. Ungoliant at first was rather hesitant about this because she did not feel that she would be able to match up against the Valar. She wouldn't be powerful enough. But Melkor promised her anything she wanted to devour. So she agreed. They stormed Valinor. She did consume the light of the two trees of Valinor and grew as a consequence. Whenever she was consuming any power, she seemed to grow in size and power herself. Eventually, Melkor and Ungoliant fled Valinor, went back to Middle-earth, and on the way to Angband, Melkor's stronghold, Ungoliant demanded her payment. As part of the siege, Melkor, now known as Morgoth, took with him, as well as the Silmarils of Silmarillion, he also took a load of other jewels and gems. So he happily gave those gems to Ungoliant, who feasted upon them and became even more massive, even stronger. But he held back the Silmarils. And Ungoliant wanted the Silmarils, but Morgoth refused. And it's at this point that Ungoliant attacks Melkor and was quite frankly able to overpower him. And possibly what some people feel is, even though Ungoliant had grown to this size because of consuming these gems, maybe in some people's minds the idea of a Maiar being able to defeat a Valar doesn't quite fit, because the Valar are supposed to be greater. However, it does need to be noted that the difference in raw military power, strength in that sense, between Valar, Maiar, and even some of the mortal races is not as great as one might suppose. After all, the men of Westerness, and I'm going to be talking about those over the next few weeks, defeated Sauron in his might, and, you know, Ungoliant, even as a Maiar, was able to defeat Melkor, sort of, or Morgoth as we now call him, but he was able to call for aid. They weren't far from Angband, and he was able to call the Balrogs to him, and the Balrogs together were able to fight off Ungoliant, who went off to... There's a bit of debate as to what fate, but one thing we know that she did do, which again is very, very different from Maya, rather unique as far as I can tell, is produced progeny. She bred with the great spiders and produced a line of intelligent great spiders, most famously, of course, in Lord of the Rings, Shelob, which is also supposed to be the last of her line. With the death of Shelob, we assume she dies. Then that's the end of the spawn of Ungoliant. But it also includes, you know, and the first time we come across them is the intelligent, but still fairly large spiders in The Hobbit. And this is again unique. Maiar, as spirits, certainly don't produce progeny. They've never bred with any of the races of Middle-earth. Can Maiar really do that? Well, just because Ungoliant is the only one to have done that doesn't stop her being Maiar if they can take a form. And remember, you know, Maiar and Valar alike, or Ainur, their existence is there to shape Arda. So they, of course, can create life in some way, although the Maiar are lesser to the Valar in terms of that. But of course they can create life because they have done. So it shouldn't come as a surprise that Ungoliant, if she chose to produce progeny for whatever reason, would be able to do that as well. So as I say, just reading the references in the Silmarillion, which is, there's not much to it than that. Although she's considered a very major character, she has a relatively small part to play. It's just a fairly cataclysmic part to play during the time on Valinor there, where, you know, the twin trees are consumed, the light is gone from the world, and that's what gives rise to the sun and the moon to provide light to Arda as well. But the way the wording is, it makes it clear to me that Ungoliant is a Maiar. The fact that she was able to grow to such power and strength is not impossible. We know that Maiar can be corrupted, especially in their physical forms. The wizards knew this. Gandalf knew that he could be corrupted by the Master Ring. That's why he refused to take it from Frodo. Saruman indeed was corrupted whilst in his physical form. Radagast, as we discussed last week, sort of was. Gandalf was in a way, a little way as well. But of course Gandalf stayed true to his purpose. But the other wizards, to some degree, greater or lesser, are also known or believed to have been corrupted from their general purpose, potentially as a weakness within that physical form. So anyway, those are my thoughts and what we know about Ungoliant. Hope you enjoyed this little departure. From next week, we're going to be going into Evendim, and I'm going to be looking at the rise and fall of the greatest kingdom of men, which is Numenor, over the next few weeks. So subscribe if you don't want to miss out on that. If you've enjoyed this video, then don't forget to click like as well. Comment down below. Share with others who might also be interested. And until next time, I'll see you later.